All right. Welcome, everyone who is here to Football for Fun. Although this isn't really the official welcome yet. I'm just going to give it a couple minutes, do a little sound check and things like that. It is a little quiet. Ideally, it were a little louder. How do I do this? Maybe I need to increase my gain or something like that. I wonder how this sounds. Test. This isn't really official. Testing 1, 2, 3. Quiet. Ideally, it were a little louder. How do I do this? Maybe I need to increase my gain or something like that. I wonder how this sounds. Test. Okay, I think it sounds better upon looking at it. I think my gain was all the way somewhere else, which wasn't, ideal. All right. Trying to keep tabs on everything. Else, which wasn't, 1 second. What I should do is actually make a YouTube post. Let's do that. How do I go? Posts. Brilliant. Okay. I think we are almost good. Maybe let's go ahead and get started. If no one comes to the party, then so be it. I'll be that kid who I'll be that kid who invite all his friends to the party, but no one showed up. One of the sadder stories in society. Where'd my glasses go? I actually would if I lost my glasses again, that would be tragic. I'm like legit worried about that now. Cause I don't know where they would be. 1 second. All right. For anyone who's wondering about my glasses, which probably is not very many of you, I'm just assuming they're at work and they're just at my desk. Oh, I was just adjusting them. They're right here. I was literally, I mean, no one's here to see it, but I was just like, where are my glasses? I assume they're at work as I just kind of move them over here. I could show you. They were just here. I was like, where are my glasses? I assume they're at work. Oh, they're right here. Nice. All right, well, I'm going to put them on because I'm trying to wear glasses more full-time. Not that it really matters for this specific context, but So be it. All right. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Let me just make sure I have all my topics. Okay. Yeah, my topics are here. All right. I think we're gonna probably talk about Diggs first. Maybe talk about flag football at the end, but I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of a boring, maybe more of a boring topic than people think. Talk about the couple quotes and just some random. Okay, I think we have a good outline. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Football for Fun. I am depressed, the Texans fan. Depressed normally because, when we started Football for Fun, this was in the offseason of 2023 when the Texans were kind of coming off, back-to-back-to-back horrendous seasons. So, obviously, my teams were not doing very good, but right now, I'm also depressed because I am doing this podcast solo for the first time. And probably not the last time. I think there will be many more of those because I think this is my first solo one. Because obviously, well, as many of you know, or maybe many of you don't know, my co-host Isaac is out. He's going to be out for a while. He is doing some seasonal work in Yellowstone. I assume that was okay to mention. I think it's pretty. My notes. It's kind of weird. Like when I start talking, then my nose suddenly just wants to itch, which is so weird. But anyway, we will get over that. But yeah, then last week I did have Devin on. Devin, who is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, but also just a fan generally. So we had a good conversation. And now it's just me. So it is just me doing the solo. I imagine for the next 4 months or whatever, July, August, September, October. It'll be 4 months. 4.5, I think. I guess from this point. But I imagine there will be a lot of solo episodes. I'll have guests on for sure. I think Devin's going to come back on. My friend, Patriots fan Thomas is going to probably come on pretty soon. And we are accepting kind of fan applications kind of loosely, but when I formally announced it, no one really responded. So I'll just probably invite people as they ask or I request and things like that. So not going to be every single podcast is going to be solo, but it'll just be one of those. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for 100 subscribers. We finally got to the triple digits. 100 was a number we were pushing for. Took all our blood, sweat, and tears. It took, some shorts going viral, some videos. I think my power ranking video, which you should check out, is kind of the one that really pushed it. And we're now at 100 and only 1/10 of the way to 1,000. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I think that is huge. And if we get to 1,000 subscribers, the sky is the limit. So just want to acknowledge that. Not really much more else to say. So if you were that 100 subscribers, shout out to you. I don't think you necessarily identified yourself, but thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, this is just peak off season. Well, I don't know if this is peak off season. Maybe next month more is. Because training camp's not till August, I don't believe. Maybe late July, but I think it's not till August. Then we have preseason. So this is the classic, the top stories are quotes and this Diggs story, which I guess I'll start with the Stefon Diggs story. Let's see, actually. Start with the Stefon Diggs story, because I did see something. George Pickens claims in a now deleted comment on social media that he forced the Steelers to trade him this offseason. I forced Buddy. They were gladly keeping me. Have a nice day and a blessed one, my guy. Classic average George Pickens moments. So, anywho, okay, let's, I'm actually going to kind of record because some of these I think are going to turn into sort of videos. So, yeah, so there was some, Stefon Diggs has been on the news the past week. I will say that it is pretty uncharacteristic, off-brand at Football for Fun for us to sort of like talk about these uncomfortable, controversial topics. Not like, someone played poorly and like, I don't know, they checked out of the game or something like that. Like anything on the field we'll criticize people for. But generally when it comes to just things like, so in case you don't know, I'm not really going to go into sort of like graphic detail about the video that came out about Stefon Diggs, but let's just say you can do your own research. And what I'm going to say is that he was on a boat with people and there was an unidentified substance on the boat. I think it was handed to him or he handed it or something like that. Which I think kind of the reason why it's potentially something that like, where he could like get in trouble or something like that is because of the substance. That seems to be something to where like people sort of did their investigations and identified that it's, just something illegal or whatever. But I think what caught most people's eyes is the, let's say people he was associated with. So we'll just leave it at that. And, there was a report, I think it was, I forget who, but someone said that, like, Stefon Diggs could get cut as a result, and there was recently something from Rap Sheet, apparently, that, just a few minutes ago, the Patriots have no plans to release Stefon Diggs, and have high hopes for him after the controversial boat video, per Rap Sheet. Now, what I will say about this is that, it would be shocking if the Patriots released Stefon Diggs as a result. It's a boat video. Like, it's not really anything to sort of like, just like you have Tyreek Hill doing horrible things and he's not, just getting released or anything like that. So it's really just like, the thing is, it would be difficult because Stefon Diggs is still really good. Now, how good is he at this point of his career? You just never know. The Patriots do need him. They need the consistent wide receiver help. So it would be a little bit out there to just cut him. I mean, I would understand it though, especially in kind of the Patriots. I know it's post Belichick, but in this sort of like Patriots sort of like no nonsense culture, it wouldn't shock me if Bill Belichick, if he were the coach, he would have cut Diggs. Although that's kind of maybe a little ironic given the news he's in now, but that's beside the point. So anyway, I will say as a Texans fan, I am definitely glad that we moved off from him. I mean, we knew from the get-go that was a one-year deal, so the fact that he didn't re-sign didn't really shock me, and especially seeing all this come out now, it's a relief that we do not have to deal with him and we can just move on. So that is really all I am going to say about the Stefon Diggs sort of topic. So, yeah, not really much to be said. I mean, it sounds like they're optimistic. Let's read some comments, since that could be fun. Have you seen their wide receiver core? No, something. He could have hit... Actually, yeah. Let's... I'm actually going to redo that, because I do want to record that. And actually, just for fun, let's go ahead and read some comments. This is from JPA Football's post, so shout out to him, give him a follow, something like that. Have you seen their wide receiver core? No, something. He could have hit the something on camera and still not been cut. I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. The Patriots need a receiver. They need receiver help, and he's by far their best receiver. I mean, it's him and like Kendrick Bourne or something like that. Him, Kendrick Bourne, I guess Polk is pretty good. Maybe you believe in him, but he is the guy in New England, so like it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to cut him. Okay, it's a celebrity getting down with some girls. So what? Let's just say that the investigations aren't really around that, but that's what most of our eyeballs are on. Man can't even get something on anymore. Okay, I'm not going to conclude that. Literally, Boston sports media were the ones making a big deal about it. All the big-time reports mentioned the incidents once and didn't follow up with it. Probably true. I actually don't know really, like, there are very many people making a sort of huge deal about it. I think it's just kind of funny, honestly, but no one's really so uptight about it. Donald Trump, nobody cares. Breaking news, athlete has fun. He was just having a good time. No organization cutting star wide receiver. It's not about having a good time. It's not that he was with those people. If you know, you know. It's not that. It's the substance that was in the video. So that's really all I'm going to say. And now I'm going to be back real quick. All right, I am back. Yeah, sorry, my nose just starts itching, just when I start talking, which is annoying. But anyway, neither here nor there. So that was the Stefon Diggs drama. We got that out of the way. Let's talk about some quotes. Where do we want to start? I think we'll start with the Joe Flacco one. So, let's talk about some quotes. So, Joe Flacco has recently been in the news. This is peak off season when the top stories, outside of the other incident, when the top stories are quotes, just someone saying something that makes sense. And Joe Flacco was recently asked in the context of, are you going to be mentoring Shedeur Sanders? Now, I actually don't remember if the report asked, if it was about Shedeur Sanders or, because, don't forget, there is also Dillon Gabriel on the roster who was drafted before Shedeur Sanders. So, if he were to be mentoring, then he would be responsible for mentoring both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I mean, theoretically, you could say Kenny Pickett too, but I think the focus is on the rookies and primarily Shedeur Sanders. But, so Joe Flacco was asked about a potential mentorship role on the Cleveland Browns, and he gave an answer which I think anyone with a pulse would understand. It's like, the quote that will come out, the first thing you'll see is that Joe Flacco is not interested in a mentorship role, which, I think, at first you might think what is he saying? What's going on? But then you kind of read more into it, and Joe kind of laid it out really well, which is that whatever answer I give is going to make me look bad one way or the other. I'll put the full quote somewhere. It'll be on the screen or something like that. But he said that either he's going to say, yes, I would love to mentor, and then just kind of be looked down upon because he's not focused on winning games, or he's going to say, no, I don't want to be a mentor and just look like a jerk, right? So he did acknowledge that it's kind of a lose-lose situation for him, what his response is going to be. And I think Joe Flacco is such a veteran, he kind of was able to kind of construct that sort of answer and basically give a good answer, which is that his job is he is going to be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, like it or not. Now, as the season progresses, who knows if Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel is going to get a chance, or I guess there's an outside shot that Kenny Pickett could be the starter, but Joe Flacco, as he should be, will be the starter for the Cleveland Browns in 2025. And his focus should be to be the starter and to win games. He's not here to mentor Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel or Kenny Pickett or anything like that. That's not really in his contract. We've seen some examples of some quarterback, mentorship, and just note the quotes, mentorship sort of relationships. Now, the examples I'm thinking of are Favre to Rodgers, Rodgers to Love, Alex Smith to Mahomes, and things like that. Now, this does kind of beg the question, because you also see this just all over the league. You could probably go to almost any team, at least 3 out of 4 teams, to where there's an older quarterback and there's a younger quarterback. And so that kind of begs the question, is this a mentorship sort of situation? Is this more like a competition? What's going on here? And my take is sort of that, well, it kind of depends on the situation. And in this situation, this is Joe Flacco. He's the starter, and he is, I don't want to say mentoring, say overseeing Dillon Gabriel, who I believe was a 3rd round pick, if I'm not mistaken, and Shedeur Sanders, who was a 5th round pick. So I would understand if, let me backtrack that. I think if there are some clear examples, Case Keenum mentoring Josh Allen, or Case Keenum mentoring CJ Stroud, Andy Dalton mentoring Bryce Young. There's, Chad Henne is kind of the mentor on the Chiefs with Mahomes, things like that. There are some clear examples there where, you have the solidified starter who is the younger guy, and so the older guy is solely here as a mentor. So you have some of those examples. However, again, keep in mind, Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders were drafted in the 3rd and 5th rounds. So they are not seen by the NFL as starting caliber quarterbacks. Now, could they develop into that? You just never know. I mean, they totally could. But right here, right now, Joe Flacco is the starter. And if not him, it's probably Kenny Pickett, honestly. They're probably going to give the reins to him before they turn to the rookies. Now, who knows if someone gets traded, if Kenny Pickett gets traded or something like that. That could always be a possibility. But it is Joe Flacco's job to sort of focus on winning games for the Cleveland Browns rather than being a mentor. Now, what I do think is also valid about Joe Flacco's quote is that hopefully he is able to lead by example. If Shedeur or Dillon has a question, he's not going to dismiss it I can't talk to you about that. We're competing for a starting job and I have to, Joe, well, he's a veteran at this point. He's also solidified his career at this point. So whether or not he's able to start as many games on the Cleveland Browns is not really going to define his legacy. I mean, his legacy is that he was a stellar playoff quarterback. He was a Super Bowl champion, and even some of his later years, he was pretty solid. On the 2023 Cleveland Browns, he kind of led them to 11 wins. No, I don't think he won all of them. I think Deshaun started some games, but he led them to a playoff appearance. So his legacy is going to be that he was the Super Bowl champion, and he was just a very solid veteran. Sometimes a starter, sometimes a backup towards the back half of his career. But but that's going to be his legacy. So whether or not he starts, it's very different with Shedeur, because with someone like Shedeur, this could kind of define his legacy, because for now, his legacy is that he's annoying, his dad is kind of overbearing, and that he was a 5th round pick when many had him projected as a 1st, or at the very least a 2nd. So right here, right now, his legacy is, Shedeur Sanders' legacy is that he fell in the draft. That's it, right? Dillon Gabriel, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Dillon Gabriel, where did he go to school? I don't even remember. I couldn't tell you. 3rd round Cleveland Browns, probably where quarterbacks go to die, so it was probably not going to amount to much. But, Joe Flacco is not going to be concerned about his legacy. So all that to say, this is a good opportunity for the young guys to kind of learn from Joe Flacco by example. When you see him throw in practice, or you see him in the meeting room, where you can ask questions and things like that. I think the point is, Joe Flacco is not making appointments with Dillon Gabriel after practice. Hey, let's do a couple more throws. Let's watch a little bit more film together. Do you have any questions? Here's some extra plays you should watch and things like that. Joe Flacco's not doing all of that. I mean, maybe he is to some extent. I actually don't know, but he's not in Cleveland to be a mentor. If he needed to be a mentor, they would hire him as a quarterback's coach or something, not as the quarterback. So that is kind of my take on the whole situation with Joe Flacco, the mentorship. I think, maybe some people try to make it some headlines ugh, Joe Flacco doesn't want to be a mentor. But I do think most people with a pulse would understand, that's the logical answer. And with that said, I actually am curious what the public says. So we're going to look at some comments just for fun. So this is interesting. So this is the JPA football account. It says, this video is via Daryl Reuter. So shout out to you, Daryl. Browns quarterback Joe Flacco says he does not want to have a mentor label entering the 2025 season with 2 rookie quarterbacks in Cleveland. And then, it says swipe. So this comment says, well, bro is 45. He needs to be. Well, is he 45? Okay, I'm not looking. I haven't looked this up yet. I think he's 40. Now, I know where you're coming from, Mr. Commenter. I know you're saying he's, older and he needs to be I kind of agree, but also kind of disagree. I do think he's kind of here to help with their development. But at the same time, what I said, They brought him in to be the starting quarterback. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Let me look this up. Dillon Gabriel. I think he was a third rounder, but I don't want to be misquoted, or I don't want to misquote. Yes, he was a third round pick. Dillon Gabriel was a third round pick. Shedeur Sanders was a fifth round pick. You think former top 10 pick Joe Flacco is responsible for mentoring those guys? What if they crap the bed when they play? Like, what does that get you, right? So, but I do think there's also a level of agreement to where, like, he should be there to sort of, like, lead by example and be the veteran voice in the, locker room. I think especially, another fact I didn't even consider is, like, you have Deshaun Watson. Like, what's he doing? Like, he's clearly, not a really good example, either on or off the field at this point. So, oh yeah. What was I going to look up? Joe Flacco? I had Joe Flacco on my search thing. I forgot what I was going to do. Oh yeah, Joe Flacco age. So, Mr. Snarky Commenter, I believe he's 40. He is 40, right? He won't be 41 until January. So, again, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I do see what you're saying, but he's 40, not 45. This was actually a really, really good answer. Yep, I agree with you. I can tell no one in the comments watched the video. He gave the perfect response. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just have to, like, watch the video and understand the whole context. I think most, like, mainstream media honestly did, at least from what I saw. Like, you could see the quote, Joe Flacco doesn't want to be labeled as a mentor, and think, he's such a jerk. But, the opposite is true. He said the same about Lamar. He's just being real, but he still helped Lamar, his rookie. He just didn't want the title. Yep, he didn't want the title. Sorry, bro, you're unk status. What does that have to do with anything? Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of the comments is actually, like, people being like, why are people hating? It's kind of the logical people who actually have brain cells rising to the top and being like, well, why? Like, so what? He is supposed to be the quarterback, right? So, anyway, that's sort of where we land as far as the Joe Flacco mentor or not mentor title. All right. Let's talk about another series of quotes, so this is in regards to the sort of story that came out. It's actually coming out in a book. I forget the name, I'll put it up here or something like that, but it's basically the effect of the story is that Caleb Williams' father, and Caleb, I believe for that matter, were really pushing, well, not pushing necessarily, I shouldn't say that, but there were serious considerations that they could push for a basically forcing out of Chicago, to where Caleb Williams, doesn't want to be the quarterback of the Bears. He wanted to be on the Vikings. He had a visit with Kevin O'Connell on the Minnesota Vikings. And I think especially after Sam Darnold posted his MVP level season then, and obviously Sam Darnold left, right? No. So, no, that's actually incorrect. This wasn't after Sam Darnold, because this was the season that Sam Darnold was signed. This was after Kirk Cousins. And then Kirk Cousins left in free agency. And then, they signed Sam Darnold and drafted. Okay, so that might be a misconception. It was for me for a second. Like, I thought this was, like, after the whole Sam Darnold thing. But if that was the case, it would have been this offseason, not last. So, yeah, and also the other thing is this was 18 months ago. So I don't know why people are, like, so, But anyway, so what kind of, what's kind of talked about is that, Caleb Williams, basically the understanding is that he wanted to be in Minnesota and didn't want to be in Chicago. And Caleb gave a response. Again, I'll put the full quote somewhere or, like, link it, but basically says, I had a good visit at the other place, Minnesota, with Kevin O'Connell. After I came to my visit to Chicago, it was a deliberate and determined answer that I wanted to come here to Chicago. Now, I think Caleb had a pretty good response. I think a lot of people, so I think kind of what happened is that Caleb wouldn't talk to the media for a week, as he shouldn't. It's a really big story that kind of came out, and he's young. He's like 22, 23, something like that. So he's not really expected to just, like, kind of address it. And if he did immediately, then the response might come out as bad. I imagine he talked to some PR people and things like that and kind of talked about, like, what should I say? And I think, like, I think he gave the honest response. Now, maybe he, like, twisted a little bit to where it's like, oh, and then I definitely wanted to be here in Chicago. Like, really? I mean, I guess. I mean, you know, maybe he just understood that, like, sitting out or going to the UFL, whatever the alternative was going to be, was not really going to be a viable option. So he just kind of decided to suck it up and, like, yeah, I'll be on the Bears. And if I throw for 4,000 yards and win a playoff game, I'll be legendary status, right? He might have kind of come to that conclusion. But I don't think he should be blamed for wanting to go to Minnesota. Minnesota is a very, very quarterback-friendly offense. You have Kevin O'Connell, who I think is or at least is going to be at this time next season or next year, a top 5 coach in the league. Like that's kind of my take out there. I don't know if it's a hot take. I guess it could be seen as that, but, like, you know, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh. Maybe I put Jim Harbaugh up there. Am I missing someone obvious? I might like him better than Dan Campbell. Is he gonna be like a top 2 coach in the league? I don't know. I think he's top 5 for sure. So you have Kevin O'Connell and then you're gonna have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and, like, that defense and things like that. You're gonna have a lot to work with in Minnesota, and I don't think Caleb Williams should be blamed for, like, wanting to go there. Now, should it have come out in a book? I'm not exactly sure. I kind of question maybe the father was overbearing or something like that, but I think this was all very reasonable. I think Caleb handled it really well, which is that he gave an honest answer, but kind of an honest, but we're going to move on type of answer. Because you also have to keep in mind, this was from 18 months ago, so this was before last season. So it is a little bit unfair to Caleb that it kind of came out and he has to, like, suddenly respond. You know, now maybe again, like, did he kind of let it come out to his dad? Like, what kind of happened there? I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's just all something we can kind of, like, move on from, and we probably won't think really anything of it for, you know, after a few years. All right. With that said, didn't really check the comments, didn't really necessarily, I mean, I guess I could. It's okay, bro, we all know you still want to be in purple. Bro, talking too much. Breaking news, college quarterback wants to throw to Justin Jefferson. Right? That's what I'm saying. Who wouldn't want to go to Minnesota, right? I mean, Rodgers is apparently dying to go to Minnesota. You know, he's, like, waiting everything out, apparently, but I think as Minnesota should, they're just saying, like, no, we don't really need you, Rodgers. Sorry. So, anywho, let's see. What else do I want to talk about? So we talked about the mentorship quote. We talked about Caleb Williams. There are some smaller topics that we could talk about. Like Steelers quarterback situation. Yeah, I'm just going to say a quick thing. Like, I'm just kind of curious. Like, if Rodgers doesn't sign with the Steelers, like, if he just retires or somehow the whole thing with, like, Minnesota works out or something like that, what are the Steelers going to do at quarterback? Because I believe currently on the roster, they have Mason Rudolph and the kid from Ohio State. I do not remember his name. Like, I think I forgot it on a previous podcast or video or something like that. And, like, currently, like, it's not Tyler Shuck. It's not Will Howard. Will Howard's the guy who's their 6th-round draft pick. They did pass on Shedeur several times. So I'm kind of the school of thought. Well, I'm kind of thinking, like, what are they going to do? Are they just going to stick it with Rudolph? And I think there are a couple of options that you could try. I mean, I do think, unfortunately, the most likely route is that they would just stick with Rudolph. I mean, Rudolph has had, as far as win-loss record, has had success in Pittsburgh. You know, he had been there for several years. He was kind of the recipient of the Myles Garrett sort of whack-a-mole, right? And this was pre-COVID time, so he has been there for a while. He's been around the block. I believe he's 29 years old or something like that, and So that might be the most likely scenario, and they're probably just like, prepping him now, like, hey, just in case, he doesn't sign, like, you're the starter. I actually wouldn't be surprised. Now, we could question, like, how ridiculous it is to kind of go into the season with Rudolph as your starter, but I think the most likely scenario, and at this point, like, Roger, is he going to sign? Like, I think the most likely scenario, I will say it, the most likely scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that Mason Rudolph is your week 1 starter. Boom. But let's talk about other possibilities because they're fun. I mean, you could start Will Howard at some point. That's probably what I would do, especially if Mason Rudolph struggles, because he's a rookie, and it's kind of like, well, if he sucks, then who cares? But if he's good, then you found your franchise quarterback in the 6th round. So that's another route you could go. But I think other routes that a lot of people talk about are like Kirk Cousins. I'm even kind of like, trade for Jameis, trade for Kenny Pickett back. Sign Ryan Tannehill. Like, I don't know, do something. Maybe Carson Wentz. I don't know. I feel like there's some like options out there that you could like go for that would be maybe better than Mason Rudolph. But maybe like the whole reason is like, would you rather have Carson Wentz who doesn't know the playbook or Mason Rudolph? Probably Mason Rudolph. Would you rather have Ryan Tannehill who wouldn't know the playbook or Mason Rudolph? This isn't 2 years ago. I think, like, Ryan Tannehill, he's been out of the league for a year. He's not, like, officially retired, but he's probably at this point is. And, like, I'd probably rather have Mason Rudolph, honestly. It kind of sucks, but I think if you're the Steelers, you're just going to ride it with Mason Rudolph. You're just going to pound the ball. You're going to play defense and just try to win 9 games. I think that's kind of, Also, what I think people don't really sort of, like, what I think people are going to realize is that even if week 1 comes and Rodgers does not sign, the headline questions are going to be, when will Rodgers sign? Because he could wait until week 5 and they're like 2-3 and it's like, okay, I can come in. I'm the triumphant hero. This could all just be a ploy to dogs. Yeah, this could all be a ploy to just skip training camp and the preseason, for all we know. I think that is a likely sort of outcome. So, what will the Steelers do? That will remain to be seen. Okay. I think there's some other topics. Flag football is cool. I might have a flag football Olympics video out. Trey Hendrickson situation is kind of ridiculous. Bryce Huff got traded. I literally have no thoughts about that. I think he was promising on the Jets, but then, didn't quite work out on the Eagles, so he was traded to the 49ers. Good for him, I guess. And Saquon Barkley is the cover athlete for Madden 26. I think, a lot of people are saying, like, oh, Madden curse and, like, all the running backs to be on the Madden cover. Like, I don't think it really matters. Now, it could, Saquon, he's getting a little older. You never really know. He could start to regress. It is entirely possible. But I don't really think the Madden curse is real. Mahomes has been on the cover recently. Who else? I think the last really case of the curse was, like, Antonio Brown, maybe. Mahomes has been on the cover, Brady, and I think he had a good season after that. Christian McCaffrey. Maybe McCaffrey I don't know. But, it's a pretty interesting topic. Another video topic. Should write that down. Let's see. Content creation. Is the Madden curse real? That's a good video topic. All right, I think we're going to call it a day. Doing a shorter stream this time, but thank you all so much to those who have stopped by or to those who have watched. I hope you enjoyed the stream, enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye.